Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Hero Remix Predictions. Why is it special? Because I'm too late, and that's because Sothis and Julia are already getting theirs. Now, in this video I'm not just going to predict the skills that these characters will get and the upgrades to their skills, I'm also going to kind of predict their weapon refines as well, because it's quite useful to do these at the same time, just to see how the sort of skills and weapon would synergize if they were to be given these things at the same time, which does seem to be the case. So with each character I'll do a remix and then a weapon refine, just to show my mindset of why I'm doing certain things. So yeah, I've got some quite exciting characters in this batch. You can probably tell my favourite of these is Thrasir, but I'm also really excited for Leif and Altina. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into this. Okay, let's have a look at legendary Eliwood. Now, Eliwood's always been a very peculiar character because rather than being sort of this amazing legendary hero unit that everyone wants because he's really powerful and everything, he's a support unit. He is a buff bot. His whole playstyle revolves around giving allies the ability to hit harder, giving the allies the bonus doubler ability. And the skills he comes with really don't make the best use of his stats. Deathblow 4 is a cool skill, but there is no speed boost here, and his weapon doesn't really give much in the way of speed, so it's quite hard to make this character a threat with what he comes with. That being said, he hits very hard, he's got a very good attack stat, but you know, without Swift Sparrow or some form of speed, something lull or trace skill, you know, you can see why he's not as effective out of the box as he perhaps could be. And so most people usually would build him with some form of Sparrow skill. Surge Sparrow is a bit expensive, but it makes the best use of his stats and allows him to have some sustain. Speed definitely tracing. He still maintains then the C skill and the weapon which he used to buff the allies. So it's, you know, a very simple character. You buff your allies, you all run in together as cavalry people and destroy stuff. Very good. You know, just to make him better though, let's go to the remix. So speed definite trace is an obvious one to come with. I mean, he's not getting very far with chill attack, so speed definitely trace is pretty nice. You know, it lets him hit and run, and even if you don't swap out Deathblow for a speed skill, you're still hitting very hard with Deathblow 4, and you have the ability to run away afterwards if they're still alive, so it's a win-win. The speed def version is good because he gets more speed and more damage. It's kind of all he really wants. I mean, you got plenty of bulk as it is with your defense points. And then Vision of Arcadia 2, so this one pretty much just a better version. Null Panic allows the units to be immune to effects that counter Visions of Arcadia. So, you know, so if you're giving everyone bonus doubler, the last thing you want is Panic Boy against you, and his HP isn't that good, so it's going to be hard to avoid that. But with Null Panic, you're literally avoiding it. It's a bit like a better version of an Oath skill, where you're buffing yourself and giving yourself Null Panic, because you're giving all this stuff to allies, and then the weapon will grant bonus doubler. So it all works together in this nice little, very powerful thing. I was debating whether to give sort of a grand tactics thing, where they get debuffed and then unitied, but then I feel like this would be enough on its own. Now if we have a look at the weapon, here we are. So these effects get longer and longer, I feel like. But this is a very realistic refine. He's got the bonus doubler effect still relatively the same, but you also get a guaranteed follow-up attack and special cooldown. This makes him a more effective fighter. You can also use this to make him more Gale Force worthy. The biggest problem with cavalry units is most of them rely on having a heavy blade sacred seal, so this removes that need and is very useful. It's a very simple refine, but it gets the job done. Mythic Sothis is a brilliant unit on paper, but that's the problem, you know. She looks great on paper, she's got good speed, good skills, good fodder, you know, but there's just something missing. And the reason for this is simply because she's an old unit at this point. You know, she's got counters, she doesn't really compete speed-wise anymore, but, you know, she's got all the building blocks of a great unit, and I think that with a refine and a remix, she's going to be brilliant. So, you know, what she comes with, attack speed, solo, wrath, times pulse, you know, this all works perfectly with Sirius, which is a brilliant special. Sublime Search is distant counter, for those of you that don't know, but also nullifies dragon effectiveness, so that's really, really useful. You don't really run into infantry effective units, so You know, the build on the right, for example, this gives you an idea of the sort of thing you can do. It makes the most of her stats, makes the most of her skills. It's one way of building a Sothis. I didn't really have a particular mode in mind. It can work on defense, Ether Aids defense, but you know, this is Sothis. Sothis is a multi-tool. Kind of fits in anywhere, if that makes sense. Although her scoring's probably not that great for Arena. Her remix is this. It's not often I actually get to comment on what has been happening, but here we are. You've got Sirius Plus. I actually guessed this one right in terms of giving it guard, null guard, but they upped both percentages to 35, if I'm correct, from 30 for Sirius Plus, so that's very good. Very just a simple, better unit. And on the sort of plane of neutralizing, they actually gave her null C disrupt, which surprised me. I thought they'd upgrade to a better A skill, but no, they chose the B skill to change, and they chose null C disrupt, so it's very interesting. And I guess with a distant counter unit, this is actually going to be a very good way of building Sothis, one that I hadn't even thought of. Null C disrupt isn't the most common B skill, so you are gaining a bit of value. For those of you who have already inherited other expensive skills, at least you don't feel cheated out of your fodder. You know, null C disrupt is not something everyone thought of. Unless I'm wrong. I mean, people might have done that. But there you go. See, so that's a good way of boosting Sothis' potential. And then for the weapon refine, I kept the base effect the same, like they often do. And then I gave her a way of getting more stats and speed damage reduction, dodge effect basically. And that's just going to help her, especially with null C disrupt, just to maintain her health. She gets hit for less damage, and she heals back with pretty much every single hit. I mean, she's got null guard, null C, you know, what else do you want? She's going to be a very good enemy phase unit, and also have a player phase to boot, so, you know, Sothis I can see becoming a lot better if she gets something like this. Then again, you know, this is a very simple refine, they could do all sorts of things. Legendary Julia, another one that's already been announced for a remix. Now, the only problem Julia's really ever had is the fact that her weapon doesn't really do much for her other than give her dragon effectiveness. Yes, you can get conditional stats and whatnot, but given her middling speed, you know, you're better off running a Fox Tome, which came out around the same time. You know, a Fox Tome gives her essentially +4 across the board, and, you know, there's no point running her weapon unless you want dragon effectiveness, which, you know, is a very good niche, but, you know, there's so many units that have come out since that have just been better. So Julia's sort of sunk into the realm of I score high, but you still won't see me very often. That being said, you know, she's got good artwork, good skills. You know, Light and Dark's a pretty interesting one. It's like a better LOL skill. But the sort of way you build her is to put null follow-up, and then you got your sturdy impacts and attack res menace. You know, this is a very bread and butter mage build. And the reason why I wasn't investing much in speed is because lots of people that you want null follow-up against will be slower characters anyway. Most of the speedier ones you've got no chance against despite that, so, you know, it's a balance. And this way you can focus a lot more on her bulk and attack, so it's quite a good balance there. So the remix she's getting, I actually predicted practically spot on. The only thing I did wrong was I didn't think they'd boost it all the way up to -5 on debuffs. So she'll inflict -5 to all stats on foe during combat, which is really good. And also neutralizes their buffs. This is the same basically as the original skill, just with a higher penalty. And then attack res menace is exactly what I thought they'd give her, and it makes sense, you know, it's just a better version of what she originally had. And it just works for her. So no matter how much you're investing into speed or how many merges you have, this will be a very useful remix for you. So it's all good. The refine I decided to give her is this. She gets attack speed res, which they probably won't do, but I'm trying to be realistic. If it was realistic for me, I'd give her attack speed def, but you know, they like to min-max stats, which is fine. Pretty much the same effect, just with a speed boost, just to help her. And then the second effect gives her a bonus to her damage and a damage reduction based on your res. So if you're going to be min-maxing your res stat over your def stat, you may as well use it in the refine to reduce damage. Very simple. I mean, most mages are quite simple. You know, here's some stats, here's some damage reduction, Here's no follow-up, guaranteed follow-up, all this sort of thing. And actually, I forgot I put guaranteed follow-up attack in the original effect as well. It might be a bit too much, but considering how much competition she faces, I think that can be allowed, especially since guaranteed follow-ups are blocked quite easily nowadays. A lot of people run more follow-ups, so that's the sort of thing I would give her. Next up is our boy Legendary Leif. Now, he's always been a fun unit to play around with. He's a cavalry bow unit with a brave bow effect that's in a pref weapon that can sort of gale force for 1 square. It's kind of a very unique unit, and not many units have ever held a candle to him in his gimmick. I mean, there are plenty of archer horse units, but I feel like Leif's quite unique. I haven't merged him, but the thing is, due to his low speed, I've never seen much of a reason to merge him, especially since he does quite well out of the box in terms of his skills. Death Smoke's quite nice if you were to run Vantage. Attack Res Push is good for some damage. It all works quite well, but if you were to build him on minimal merges, all you'd really need is a more powerful A skill. A Trace skill's appreciated, and Death Res Smoke is brilliant for his type of unit with the Brave weapon. So that's quite good. For his remix, I would give him Death Res Smoke 3. Like I said, it's a brilliant skill. Death Res on target and foes within 2 spaces, but more importantly, he gives himself Pathfinder. And this is a really good effect for a unit that's made to run in, run back, and let the others follow through. And the smoke effect allows your allies to Pathfinder through you, no matter what their magic or physical, and attack all of them within that space. If that word's right. Neuron Seal 2, it's giving you a little bit more bulk, and it restricts to 2 spaces, so it's a bit like Canto 2 rather than Canto 1. You must remember that the original reason that Neuron Seal was only 1 square was because it was probably the first Canto effect we ever saw, but nowadays we've got units with Canto 2 on a flying mage. I think it's okay if he has Canto 2 built in, or something similar. So, that's pretty good. And then his weapon, I believe the base effect is the same, but at the start of combat, if the foe has quite a high HP, it debuffs them for attack and death during combat, and he makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. Now that's quite insane, and it's dual phase, but it's only if the opponent's high on health. And what this means is that he'll always be hitting 4 times, which is quite strong, and it's quite scary actually. They might not do something as insane as this, but you got to remember that his might on his weapon is lower, so this might be 0 times 4 territory. So, depending on how adventurous they want to be with this effect, I can see them doing at least the attack def -5. But they tend to be quite tame with the brave weapon refines, if I'm right. Just because it's a very fine line between being good and overpowered. So I'm just trying to bring Leif up to a modern standard. But if it's too much, they might not do that much. Next up we have Mythic Altina. Now, she's always been a fun unit to play around with. She was one of the first Hero Rises winners, where everyone voted for a character they wanted to be given to all players for free, and she won. And that's because, as an Astra hero, it meant that we got a free light and a free Astra hero. She's quite good out of the box with a fully built kit, just needs reposition or smite. And brilliant for Ether Raid's offense. Now that time has long passed, and she is no longer that simple to make work out of the box, mostly because of her lower attack points, her easily countable playstyle in a defense team, and she doesn't really hold a candle, I've used that phrase already in this video, but she doesn't really hold a candle to modern day Ether Raid's defense teams. And the reason for that is simply because she's outdated, just like with Sothis, and as a unit ages, their relevance will dwindle, because units are designed to counter the old stuff. So anyway, the way to build her usually would just be to keep amping up that attack and death. Sorry if you can hear hammering in the background. And that's it, you kind of call it a day. You smite her in with Mordecai, and then all these skills work together just so she can vantage sweep the team. There are other ways of using her, like Gale Force and stuff, but with low investment, this is the sort of thing people would be using. I'm sure you've probably used her in that way too if you have her. For the remix, both of these skills need upgrading. I'm not sure if they're going to up her fodder or something, but if I was to change either of these skills, there you are. It disables non-special skills that reduce damage. She gets a special cooldown, special spiral type thing. Very simple, but it helps her vantage sweep if she has special spiral. Just means she'll always proc the skill. And then Ashira's chosen too. She gets more than just attack and death during combat. She gets res as well. This just helps if she has to take a hit. And then she also gets special cooldown charge +1 per attack. Again, speeding up the process, helping her to constantly proc twin blades. Not much else to be said with that. They're very simple skills and have very obvious changes, if that makes sense. You know, you just up the ante with what they're already doing. And then as for the refine, obviously the base effect stays the same. It's already broken as it is. But if we have a look at the extra effect here, you can do attack def -5 on the opponent for a really easy condition. This again helps vantage sweeps. And then I pretty much gave a def res smoke 3 as the refine on top of this. So you got Pathfinder, def res smoke. This helps with vantage sweeping, it helps with Wings of Mercy strategies, and Pathfinder helps with Aether Raid's offense. So with Aether Raid's offense in mind, I made this refine good at sweeping enemies. It might be that she still needs merges in order to be effective, but she's been out a while now, so people that like her probably have a couple of merges. And you can always use Trait Fruit to ensure she has attack plus, because Trait Fruits are not the most common, but I think there are enough that you get a good pickings of who you get to use them on. But anyway, that's what I'd do for her. Finally, we have Mythic Thrasir. Now, despite her being my favourite of this batch, I'm not afraid to admit that she has not aged very well either. While she comes with more or less a full kit, even the very skills she's coming with have not aged particularly well. Her stats are decent. Dragon Flowers make up for some of the, attack deficiencies and such, but the main problem with her is that she's just another dragon effective mage trying to stick out from the bunch, and all she really has is something that weekly revival unit Lewin already provides and already has a weapon refine to boot. So she'd cost about twice as much being on legendary banners. Now she'll be on weekly now she'll be on the remix banners. She'll be cheaper to merge, but you'll still be limited to sort of aiming for sparks. But the sort of way you build her is very similar. You add Ruptured Sky because it's better against dragons. You give her the reposition, and then Speed Smoke 4 adds that extra bit of bulk so she can sustain herself a bit better. And then Blade Session is just a typical attack speed booster. If we move on to her remix, I basically just amplified what Killing Intent is trying to do, debuffing the opponent during combat, allowing you to attack before the foe can counterattack. But it also disables all the skills excluding the foe during goals. Basically, it's an anti-savior skill, and this is devastating if you're trying to shut down people that are on offense trying to use savior skills. A bit like what Brahminman does, but when Brahminman comes along, I'd do something even more down that path. But Thrasir is just adding in a little effect here that disables save skills, which is quite useful. And the Speed Smoke 4, like I said, is a very good skill for her. It can start off a very good chain reaction with your defense team to debuff by speed, and giving herself dodge means she'll be a little bit more of a pain to take down in one turn. Makes use of her speed stat too. Then her refine, I upped the ante to +5 tool stats. I gave her a full null follow-up attack, whereas before I believe it was only a partial null follow-up. This just means that she'll be able to hit twice always if she's speedy enough, and the opponent won't be making guaranteed follow-ups against her. And then for the refine effect, I gave her a speed res hold, which is usually something that flyers get. Speed res -5 passively on everyone within 3 spaces that's an enemy. And then I gave her Fatal Smoke built in, because I feel like Fatal Smoke embodies what Thrasir and Leif are trying to be. It's the sort of thing that they would use, and duo Leif and Thrasir were the inspiration for this. So, that's the sort of thing. It's not much different to what Thrasir was already, but aren't most refines like this? It's amplifying what they were intended to be, and to be up to modern day standards. So she's got some extra stats, she's got deep wounds, and a better base effect. So hopefully she'll get something similar to this. And that just about rounds up this Hero Remix prediction. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any of your own ideas, please tell me in the comments. I'm always interested in finding out, what you guys would come up with, especially since I don't use most of the units in the game. We all tend to stick to our favourites, so if you're the type of person that's used someone like Altina or Sothis or Eliwood since they've come out, or any of these characters, tell me what works best for you. What sort of build do you use? What do you think would work best for their refine and or remix? What do you think of Sothis and Julia's remix now that it's been announced? Was it what you were hoping for? I'd love to know all this sort of stuff, so tell me, and I'll be sure to read it when I find it. But for now, I will say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.